Testing 1, 2, 3. Hi, everybody. Testing, testing, testing. I had to put the earpiece in. Hi, guys. All right. So I did something a little bit different. Hi, Immortal on X. Shout out to everybody on X. I started to show like 5 minutes before 9 to do the countdown. So that way at 9 o'clock, I could just start off with the opening statements instead of the countdown. It just saves time, and I like trying new things, right? Doing things differently. So, yeah, and of course, I did tell the judge to be on time, and he's not here on time, and I don't have time for this because I just spoke to him not too long ago. So I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the problem is. But we're gonna have a good show. So we have to talk about Candace and Erika. They had to sit down, yeah, like grown adults should, and all is well in the land of conservatism. So that's the top topic that I'm going to start off with. And you know what? I I'm not good at titles at all. I'm not. And I'm literally going to have to hire someone just for my titles, a specialist, a professional that is very good with creating video titles, catering to YouTube because I suck at it. And so we all have a weakness, and that is my weakness. So I put what is going on with in Venezuela. God, Trump is blowing up the oil tanks. Well, no, he is ceasing their oil tanks, blowing up the cartel shipments, and he is threatening to send troops into Venezuela. So my question is, are we headed to World War III? I don't know. And US soldiers in Syria, what is going on with that? I didn't think we had active troops like that in Syria. And of course, over the weekend, I believe this was Sunday. Sunday, Bondi, because Americans we would name it Bondi, but I think it's Bondi Beach. That's how they pronounce it in Australia. The terrorist attack, basically attacking a Jewish synagogue. They were, that was the beginning of Hanukkah. Their Jewish people were celebrating Hanukkah, and some deranged terrorists started shooting it up. So yeah, and then of course Brown University, Ivy League nightmare. Then I'm gonna touch on Jasmine Crockett, Diddy, all that good stuff. Give me 1 second. All right. So a Muslim man disarmed him. Well, listen, is it a false flag? Because now it's conspiracies, theories coming out of Iran and everywhere else talking about false flags, right? And that was the first time of that term, false flags. Um, oh my God, I can't believe that this should have been the first thing come out. Rob Reiner murdered him and his wife by their son. Tragedy. Gotta touch on that. So, guys, okay, the judge is backstage. I'm gonna wait until he gets set up. So, guys, please hit the like button. Share this video on all your social media outlets. If you are watching on X, please repost and like. What is this here? What I'm doing. Yeah. Do it that way. Okay. I'm just doing a little bit of setup here. So like, share. Oh, I didn't put the goal. I think I am going to put a goal in there. And oh, I was supposed to do I called myself trying to do a live show Friday night, and it was going to be the call-in show Friday. Honey, I go to the gym Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sunday mornings. I was dead tired Friday, and I didn't think I was going to be that tired. So I may have to, and I said I was going to do a show Saturday, but I just wanted to chill on Saturday. So what I may do, maybe I'll probably just do a pop-up call-in show, maybe Thursday. Oops, was I muted the whole time? I hope not. So yeah, I was too tired to do a call-in show Friday. I did it. I went live for 5 minutes and was like, no, I can't do it. And then so going forward, I may just do a call-in on a Sunday or a Thursday night. Okay, I wasn't muted. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I didn't realize I was gonna be that tired coming from the gym. And I keep promising y'all a call-in show. And so when I do my show on Wednesdays, I think that's the day I'm just gonna take call-ins. No, I could hear you. Okay, thank you. Halamel, you can hear me. Okay. So Wednesday of this week, Fannie Willis is supposed to be in front of the Georgia committee, and hopefully they will be streaming that live, because if they are, then I will be streaming that live here. But going forward, because this is December, it's the end of the year, people are going away on vacation or preparing for the holidays. Going forward, I'm going to take call-ins on Wednesday, because I'm not going to go live on Fridays. I'm probably only going to go live 2 days. That's Monday and Wednesday. And I'll take phone calls, call-ins on Wednesday. Why Sunday at 6? Why Sunday at 6? That's very specific, Halamel. And as you notice, I'm talking to you guys because the judge is backstage late as usual, CPT time. And I want to start the topics with him here. I don't want to start with Candace because that's the opening topic. And then he chimes in 10 minutes later. I don't want to do that. I want us to start each topic together. This is a joint show. This is a joint show. So, yeah. And let me see something. Can you hear me? Okay, now he hopped out. As soon as I bring him in, he hops out. Oh my God. I can't, honey. All right. Can you hear me?
I hear you. I was looking at you for a while, but you knocked me off. I can't see you right now.
Well, don't touch no more buttons.
Well, yeah, I see the whole thing right now. Okay.
How are you? How you
Okay,
doing?
I'll manage.
Oh, you work early on Monday, so you got to go to bed early, Halima. Okay. It's all about you. All right. First thing I want to touch on, Judge, because this have been trending forever. Candace, honey. So Candace and Erika Kirk. Let me see something here. Candace and Erika Kirk decided to sit down and hash things out. And they did. And that took place today. It was no cameras, no social media. And so she tweeted tonight, Erika and I had an extremely productive 4.5 hour meeting that I think we both feel should have taken place a lot earlier than it did. I agree to that as well. Then she goes on to say, we agree much more than I anticipated. Of course, we also disagreed on various points and people as well. Most importantly, we were able to share intel and clarify intent. I will, of course, have a full blown rundown for you all tomorrow as I am currently exhausted. But I wanted to quickly let you guys know that absolutely nothing was held back. And the immediate result was that tensions were thawed. So I think that is a great thing. Erika wrote, let me make this bigger. Oh, maybe that's too big. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Erika wrote, had a very productive conversation with Candace. More to come from both of us. Looking forward to AmFest this week. Time to get back to work. Yeah. So, two grown women, you know, adulting, coming together and having a conversation to cease speculation, accusations, and just get a better understanding of where each person is coming from. And I think that is a good thing. What are your thoughts?
Who, me?
Yes.
I never understood that vital news or topical news had anything to do with being nice. I don't get it. That's good if they're friends or something, I suppose, but I don't think it has anything to do with news reporting.
Well, Erika Kirk is the widow of Charlie Kirk.
I got it. She's the widow. I appreciate that.
And we talked about this last week. And by the way, a lot of people last week when we did the special, it was the Injustice for All special edition. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Cleaning stuff up, just some of that,
Why?
just getting it out of the way so I
You
can get
can't
order.
clean this up. You had all day to
I
clean up
don't have
stuff.
all day to clean up. I got other things to do dealing with up here. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's nice that they're being good to each other. I guess it's a lady thing, but I never understood the news had to be nice. In fact, I always thought it was better when the parties didn't particularly like each other, but did have a modicum of respect. That always
Mhm.
worked out better. People didn't hedge because they were being nice, unless it was a matter of national security, which used to be something you could count on the American press to more or less protect, but not anymore. So,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, fine, nice, but that's not what we're here for. At least I'm not.
Let me
But
ask
I admire Miss Owens, Mrs. Farmer.
Mhm. Let me ask you a question. Is your iPad near you?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. You have your watch on by any chance?
Yes, I do.
You have too much electronics going on.
Last few couple of weeks have been all of the above on. I just keep the watch on and go from there.
Well, no, because I hear a little bit of interference. I don't know. But because you got your
Well,
desktop there, you got your Apple Watch.
the interference is the heating system in the background. What you're hearing
Oh, maybe not. I don't know.
sounds
But
like
all
kind
right.
of an electronic buzz, but that's the heating system. It's freezing here.
Well, let's get back real quick to the Candace and Erica thing. Tyler Robinson, his trial is approaching and it will be televised. Um, and that is the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk. And a
I
lot of
hope
so
we
I
have
understand.
better than Nancy Grace covering it like we had, unfortunately, on the OJ case. It was inept and
Well,
inadequate and biased, and well, it wasn't even biased. It was just outright fabricated to enhance its newsworthiness. I hope we don't have that going.
a lot of people really enjoy the video that we did, the special edition of Injustice for All last week with the Candace and Erika, because what was highlighted that no one did not think of, which is to Candace's point that she's been trying to get at, and search for the truth. When we look at high profile assassinations in the past, the people that was originally accused of being the killer ended up not being the actual killer. And this could be the same thing happening right now with Charlie Kirk, right? MLK, JFK, and now Charlie Kirk.
Well,
And I want to tell people, go watch that video because the judge breaks it down. You don't have to, I might ask them to regurgitate that again. Go watch the video. It's a really good video. But yeah, people forget history, and history is very important. History is very important to know and to not forget, because a lot of times it always repeats itself. So yeah. Anything else you want to say on the Candace Owens?
she does a
thing?
pretty good job of being a reporter. That's the way they used to do it. So, I mean, I just, I look at it like, well, okay, this is the way it's been done for a long time. Well, not for a long time recently, but before that, that's just the way it was done. So why is everybody all freaked out about it?
Right. So moving on, let's go to Venezuela.
Hmm.
I want to play this clip.
Remember when the Democrats and others, the radical left, used to say that the people they're allowing into our country, immigrants, are nice people. They're not violent like our people. Well, they make our people look like babies. These are some of the most violent criminals anywhere on earth. From many countries, not just Venezuela. Venezuela emptied their jails into our country. But others have also. The Congo has. So many other countries have. And we don't put up with it. I have to say the drugs coming in by sea are down 94%. And we're trying to figure out who the other 6% are. But they're down 94%, and we're going to start hitting them on land, which is a lot easier to do, frankly. But these are a direct military threat to the United States of America. They're trying to drug out our country. And you can look throughout history. Look at China when they were loaded up with drugs. They were suffering greatly, and others were able to take them over. And other countries also. They're trying to drug out our country, and we're reversing it rapidly, actually.
Imagine being able to build an app.
House and Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson. Hey, Lucas.
Jackie, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has just posted a statement on X reacting to that terrorist attack at the Hanukkah event in Bondi Beach. I'll read it. It says, the United States strongly condemns the terrorist attack in Australia targeting a Jewish celebration. Anti-Semitism has no place in this world. Our prayers are with the victims of this horrific attack, the Jewish community, and the people of Australia. Now, before the news of the massacre in Australia and the 3 Americans killed in Syria, President Trump had focused overseas primarily on Venezuela after U.S. forces seized an sanctioned oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela, and President Trump wouldn't rule out doing it again.
It wouldn't be very smart for me to tell you that. We're supposed to be a little bit secretive.
A U.S. Coast Guard Maritime Special Reaction Team boarded a sanctioned tanker last week carrying 1.8 million barrels of oil bound for Cuba, with previous voyages to Iran. The commandeered vessel now heading to a U.S. port, and the White House says it intends to seize the oil. At the same time, the U.S. military has been bolstering its forces in the Caribbean. EA-18 Growler electronic warfare jets have arrived in Puerto Rico, along with Air Force F-35 stealth fighter jets from Vermont and combat search and rescue helicopters from Japan used to rescue downed pilots. Mid-air refueling tankers have been forward deployed to the Dominican Republic. Advanced radar has been sent to Trinidad, 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. The USS Gerald R. Ford, fresh off a port call in St. Thomas, has been positioned further south in the Caribbean. Her E-2 Hawkeyes and F-18 Super Hornets flying daily show of force missions just outside Venezuelan airspace. There are now roughly 250 Tomahawk cruise missiles aboard warships in the Caribbean, ready to strike if ordered by the Commander-in-Chief. At home, President Trump and the White House are fighting a battle over affordability, which many Democrats think has not been adequately addressed heading into next year's midterms. At a rally in Northeast Pennsylvania, Trump blamed his predecessor.
I have no higher priority than making America affordable again. That's what we're going to do. And again, they caused the high prices, and we're bringing them down.
The White House also wants to bring down the cost of health care.
All right, so Venezuela, right? United States seized oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela December 10th, which officials state was connected to terrorist organizations. According to FBI, it was being used to transport sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran and have been used in recent years as part of an illicit shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations. The Venezuelan government described it as a blatant theft, while Iran's embassy in Venezuela capital Caracas described it as grave violation of international laws and norms. So is Trump violating international laws?
No, he's not. As a matter of fact, Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution specifically mandates what he's done or is doing. It says specifically the president, or rather the commander in chief, as it is styled, and the armed forces, quote, shall enforce the law of nations, unquote. Further, in Article 1, Section 8, it says it is the duty of the commander in chief and the armed forces to pursue, eradicate, and suppress piracy wherever found in the world. Article 6 of the Constitution makes ratified treaties part of the supreme law of the land. And there are a number of treaties that the U.S. has executed and have had them ratified by the Senate, so they're part of the supreme law of the land on the level with the Constitution and its amendments. And hijacking aircraft is an act of piracy. This all stems back from 2001 with 911, and you get Al Qaeda, who was operating in a fashion that wound up hijacking several aircraft on 911, crashed 4 of them into targets. Well, 3 of them into targets, and a 4th one, due to the heroics of the passengers on board, crashed to their ultimate demise in a field rather than into an intended target. Now they don't have to hijack aircraft. They were allowed to bring their military grade explosives across the open southern border. Now, Venezuela is caught up in a situation where their oil tankers, for great profit to Venezuela, are trafficking in oil that is bringing operating cost and taking care of expenses for extremist organizations, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hamas, etc. So, under the law of nations, those things should be suppressed and those contraband goods should be seized. The problem is nobody has had the means. Well, people have had the means, but nobody's had the will to put them to use. Now, there's an interesting thing about Venezuela, Peru, and other places in South America. At one point in the 19th century, after the U.S. tore its navy to pieces after the Civil War, Venezuela had a more potent navy than the United States did, and that became one of the impetus, one of the factors that was an impetus for the U.S. Navy rebuilding shortly before the Spanish-American War. It started supposedly because the Maine, which was one of the warships that was built as a result of Venezuela having a superior navy, blew up in Havana Harbor. The yellow press pushed it, that it was blown up, sabotaged by the Cubans or the Spanish, which it wasn't. It was defective coal that spontaneously combusted, and they used coal bunkers as armor for their magazines, and it blew the ship up because of its own deficiencies. The U.S. knew this. It was confirmed a few years later by Navy divers, and they used it to provoke the Spanish-American War because the U.S. was interested in becoming a colonial power, an imperial power, and out of that they got the American Virgin Islands, that's Puerto Rico, et cetera, et cetera. They wound up controlling the Philippines and got in a war with the Moros, who didn't like the idea of substituting one bunch of colonialists for another. And that's part of American history. So it is what it is. And there was an interesting thing that the Venezuelans did to the U.S. back in the 19th century. They seized an American ship, either hung or put the captain in front of a firing squad, and executed quite a number of the crew because they said they were running contraband to some guerrillas down there in South America. So the U.S. got very upset about it and evoked the Monroe Doctrine. So that is also another reason to be down there, is the involvement of international factors in the Western Hemisphere that are forbidden under the Monroe Doctrine, which is going on 200 years old. So it's nothing new. He's following long established American law and the Constitution of the United States of America. But it's not surprising that so much ignorant rhetoric is floating around out there because too few people read the Constitution. Very few of those elected to Congress, either the House or the Senate, have read it. In fact, essentially only 25% of practicing lawyers and sitting judges in the United States have read the whole thing, though they study elements of it in law school.
Well, do you think that we're headed to World War III because Trump said he's not ruling out combat boots on the ground in Venezuela, an
No,
invasion?
it's not. That won't start World War III.
No?
No, it's not. You've got a good long few kilometers between the east coast of South America and the west coast of Africa or Europe. And if somebody wanted to come over there, that's a long way to go over some water that's patrolled by the United States Navy. And the U.S. Navy controls anything that's on the surface of the water with what they have under it, on it, or over it. So ain't nobody going nowhere. We need another couple of aircraft carriers, but we have quite a few right now. So uh, essentially, the number of aircraft carriers we have is any one of the main units could probably sink all of the fleets that were involved in all of World War II. So that's how much firepower you've got out there. And don't forget the best nuclear submarines in the world. They sort of run everything. For real, they replaced the battleships and they are a lot more proficient. They're faster and they are basically hidden. And they run silent, run deep, run fast.
Well, um, part I think part of the reason why Trump is seizing their oil, right? Of course, more for us. Some of that oil was going.
Minuscule. It's just it cuts out, it really messes with the financing operation that some of our worst enemies in the Middle East have, and Venezuela was cashing in on the need to transport it for them. So that's Monroe Doctrine. In other words, you're helping out enemies of the United States, and you are doing it out of your South American country. Ain't no how, ain't no way. That's called what? Roosevelt, Teddy said, speak softly and carry a big stick. Well, sometimes you don't have to speak so softly.
Wait a minute. So we okay, so Venezuela and United States, there's two separate countries. So if Venezuela wants to do business, whether it's with Russia or Iran, that's their business.
It might be, except for the fact that some other country might say it's our business. And if you get the most powerful military in the world that is not stuck in a ground war someplace, that's a whole lot of havoc that can be brought to bear on the situation. In the 19th and first part of the 20th century, Great Britain ran everything because its navy ruled the waves. So that's what happened in the 19th century and the early 20th. Now the United States is in that position and nobody else is. China has more ships in its navy, but they're not the same kind and they're not heavyweights to slug it out. And they're on the other side of the North American continent.
Was a lot of that oil was going to be transported to Cuba, and Cuba needs oil.
Well,
So
Cuba needs to be friendlier.
let me say this. So the United States is financially trying to
Strangle them.
hold on. The United States is financially trying to strangle Venezuela, but at the same time, they're also squeezing Cuba as well. And that's very intentional. This is very intentional.
And also, don't forget, the problem is that the oil comes from some interest that will put the profits to use in paying for extremist activity. Those people that fled and didn't flee crashed the southern border with military grade explosives. That's how they get financed. So cut the money off. That's a lot easier than killing them.
All right, so I want to play this clip here because JetBlue had a minor, almost air collision with U.S. military fighter jets.
Start of the Trump administration's pressure campaign on Venezuela, but it's the latest development since launching Operation Southern Spear, which is aimed at curbing the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is in Washington with more on these developments. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Jackie. Well, I just came from an on-the-record briefing with the ranking member of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Mark Warner spoke with the George Washington University's Defense Writers Group, and I asked him point blank if the U.S. is going to war with Venezuela. Senator Warner is a member of the Gang of Eight, and he said, I don't know. That is alarming given the amount of air power, troops, and warships in the Caribbean right now. The USS Gerald R. Ford is moving south into the Caribbean basin, further into the basin. EA-18 Growlers, electronic warfare jets in Puerto Rico to jam enemy radar and take out surface-to-air missile sites. Air Force HH-60 search and rescue helicopters deployed to the Caribbean from Japan, and 12 Navy warships.
Is the campaign against Venezuela still just about drugs, or is it now also about oil?
It has to do with a lot of things. It's going to be starting on land pretty soon.
He seems to be sleepwalking into a war with Venezuela.
Seizing an oil tanker is one thing, but what follows could be far bigger. President Trump says the U.S. will keep the oil from the tanker. It's not the first time the U.S. has seized sanctioned oil tankers. It did so with 4 tankers in 2020, Iranian oil that had been sanctioned. The Treasury Department has now targeted Maduro insiders and sanctions evaders, including sanctions on 3 of Maduro's nephews and 6 shipping companies. The seized vessel is now in forfeiture, headed to a U.S. port. Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, is reaffirming support for Venezuela's Maduro. Today, more details have emerged in the Wall Street Journal exclusive about the dramatic and nearly failed evacuation of the leading Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, who has been in hiding in Venezuela and is seen here on the balcony of her hotel in Oslo, where she received the Nobel Peace Prize. She was nearly lost at sea for 3 hours after a series of mishaps by by the contractor sent to help her escape Venezuela, including a fishing boat that at first broke down, a GPS that went overboard. The Venezuelan operation appears designed to remove Maduro from power, but it's not clear whether all of the U.S. government entities responsible for oversight know the overall plan and whether Congress has been fully briefed. There are bound to be questions about how Machado was evacuated and why all of the details ended up in the press. Jackie?
Maybe people need to refresh their recollection of history and read up on what the Cuban Missile Crisis was about between President John F. Kennedy and Premier Nikita Khrushchev, who, by the way, was a Ukrainian.
Well, if Russia is backing Venezuela, honey,
No,
they
Russia is
we just
not what
heard
the,
Russia.
Russia is not what the Soviet Union was. And the other thing is that, remember, the Soviet Union was backing Cuba when we put an embargo on any shipments into Cuba to get the missiles out. It turned out to be a sucker play because Khrushchev wanted our intermediate range nukes out of East Europe, and he sent a telegram that took several hours to send. I imagine it was quite expensive, and he listed the serial numbers of the missiles, the trucks, and the geographic locations where these missile launchers were positioned. Midway through the Cuban Missile Crisis, he said, "You get them out, and we'll take the missiles out." So
Well, JetBlue, the plane narrowly avoided a midair collision with the U.S. Air Force jet near Venezuela on Friday, an incident which the pilot described as outrageous. JetBlue flight 1112 Airbus A320 en route to New York from the Caribbean nation of Curacao, 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 whatever, was roughly 20 minutes into its flight when it encountered the U.S. Air Force tanker north of Curacao. The tanker reportedly flew directly into JetBlue flight path, prompting the passenger plane to take evasive action to maintain separation from a tanker aircraft. Like, how did that happen? So apparently, according to the captured live ATC, the JetBlue pilot called the incident outrageous, noting that the military aircraft did not have an operating transponder, an electric device that allows air traffic control to track aircraft accurately. Without it, an aircraft cannot be detected on radar. So they just avoided a collision with American airline JetBlue. So
lack of communication, somebody should have been communicating what was going on. But then again, you don't want to give a precise location for a tanker aircraft, which is both a strategic and tactical asset that some enemy of the United States might want to shoot down. But there apparently was a breakdown. But when it comes to military versus civilian, when they're in active operations, well, World War II, 1944, Admiral Lee, United States Navy, was operating a task force that had the battleship Washington, the battleship South Dakota, and one other one. And some people were in the way. He said, "Send the message in clear. This is Admiral Lee coming through. Get the hell out of my way."
well,
And some heavy tonnage came through.
I want to swing to Syria real quick. Two U.S. American soldiers and a civilian interpreter was killed by ISIS terrorists in Syria. So, according to what is this? Abkhaz, it says they were the two U.S. Army soldiers and civilian interpreter were killed, and three others were injured in an ambush by gunmen from ISIS terrorist group in Syria on December 13th, according to the Pentagon. Pentagon spokesperson said in a statement on social media that the attack occurred in the central Syrian town of Palmyra. A U.S. forces were conducting
Oh, my.
what?
I just gave the correct pronunciation. Go ahead.
Say it.
Palmyra.
Palmyra. Our U.S. forces were conducting a key leader engagement in support of ongoing counter ISIS and counterterrorism operations. Quote, today in Palmyra, Syria, 2 United States Army soldiers and 1 civilian U.S. interpreter were killed. One second. Were killed, and 3 were wounded. U.S. Central Command said casualties resulted from an ambush by a lone ISIS gunman. The names of the fallen soldiers and identifying information about their units are being withheld pending notification of their next of kin. President Donald Trump expressed condolences for the 3 killed service members, noting that the other 3 who were wounded appear to be doing pretty well. We mourn the loss. Trump said Syrian forces were fighting alongside U.S. forces when the incident occurred, and the interim Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shara, was devastated by the word of attack. This was an ISIS attack on us and Syria. We will retaliate. That's what Trump said. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth warned that any attack on U.S. forces will be met with severe consequences. Let it be known, if you attack Americans anywhere in the world, you will spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing the United States will haunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you. Jeez. The Syrian Arab News Agency reported that U.S. helicopters evacuated wounded U.S. base in Syria. Wait, one second, Judge. Sorry. Go ahead.
That just goes with the territory. The real problem is that the jackass Biden-Harris administration let in hundreds of thousands of these son of a bitches with their high explosives in their backpacks. Nobody checked them, and they've already planted them. So if there's any danger of a war erupting, this is what's going on. It's already in place. It's ready to go. And if they're killing somebody sniping, so to speak, in a foreign theater, they don't have to limit themselves to that now. They are already here. And these damn fools in the Democratic Party are going, yeah, 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 yeah. It's so evil to cut this off. Well, guess what? This is what you let in. So when the shit hits the fan, we know who to blame.
Right. And the man who carried out the attack in Syria that killed the 3 U.S. citizens joined the Syrian internal security forces as a base security guard 2 months earlier and was recently reassigned amid suspicions that he might be affiliated with Islamic State group.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was checking anyone on this southern border for 4 years. They just walked in. Nobody checked their luggage. You are an American citizen. You fly in and they're going to check your luggage or run you through security. They did not. All of these people from Hamas, ISIS, Al Qaeda were just welcomed right in. All of these people from North Korea, from the People's Republic of China, just welcomed right in. Nobody checked them. Nobody asked them for credentials, anything. Oh, come on in, guys. The ICE forces weren't even armed because they were not authorized to do anything. They just got the hell out of the way. So for 4 years, all of this is just walking across the border. And here you are. This is a new recruit proving himself. He just takes somebody out over there. So they have many, 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 many more here, not just 17 that hijacked some aircraft. They've got hundreds of thousands that have come across the border. And then don't forget the organized crime figures and the cartels and the drug trafficking. And that, by the way, is why you have a targeted oil cargo, because the oil cargo is going to be used to generate funds for the operation of Hamas, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Iranian forces, etc. So you seize the money. and Venezuela was assisting them. They were being, shall we say, accessories to this. And when you've got a situation where you are conducting um, an embargo for military or diplomatic purposes, that was an issue in World War One. The fleet of Great Britain was stopping anybody, neutral or otherwise, that looked like they were bringing cargo into Germany, and they were diverting the ships to English ports to be inspected by English authorities and either confiscated or released, depending upon what was on board. So there's 100-plus-year-old international precedent for this. And one of our closest allies, Great Britain, was heavily engaged in it in 1914, 15, and 16, 17, and 18. So it ain't nothing new.
I want to play this clip here because this was very interesting when it comes to funding certain NGOs and terrorists.
With a phone call, Lynn, I had a phone call with Secretary Rubio, meeting with him. This deal with the Somalis over in Minnesota is just the tip of the iceberg, ma'am. It's completely out of control. We are sending currently $40 million a week to the Taliban in Afghanistan. There's around 1,000 of these NGOs that are created, and what happens is some billionaire Soros-esque kind of person puts money in an account, $1 million, some unelected bureaucrat in Washington, D.C., sees that, and it's got a great name like, Feed the Starving Children or something. So, and they start funding them. And Elon Musk told me, and I have no reason to doubt it, we probably put close to $1 trillion of your tax dollars into these things. And then it flows into the pockets of terrorists, and ma'am, they will hate us for free. We don't need to be paying the Taliban $40 million a week. But the president's aware of it. And last week, the Senate Democrats blocked the bill on the Senate floor, if you can imagine that. And you got to wonder where their loyalties are. They don't care if they burn this dadgum country down. All they want is to get their money to fund, because their wives and or their girlfriends, or possibly both, are probably employed by some of these NGOs. We better start watching this. If we're sending $40 million a week to the Taliban, dadgum, and the Somalis are ripping us off over there, it's all over the country. We better start paying attention.
All of this sounded familiar to me, so I went and did a little more research over the last couple of days on my history. And this looks very suspiciously like what the Democrats did leading up to the Civil War, where all through the South, they diverted munitions, monies, resources, and facilities away from the interest of the United States of America to what became the Confederate States, who were engaged in rebellion. And technically, considering the amount of treason that was involved, they wound up being lucky. And I suppose it was diplomatic to ease the feelings, not to put a whole lot of them on the wall and shoot them for being traitors. But the U.S. reconciled at the end of the war. A lot of people were pardoned and forgiven if they took the oath. And but it's nothing new. The Democrats did this back in the late 1850s and 1860 and 1861 to give enemies of the United States a boost on this. So they have been engaged in a lot of treasonous activities over the centuries that the U.S. has been in existence. So this is not surprising.
All right. So Brown University it was two major shootings over the weekend. Ivy League Brown University, that's in Rhode Island, and Bondi. I think Australians say Bondi. We would say Bondi, but I think it's pronounced Bondi Beach in Australia. Had basically a terrorist attack, a man shooting up Jewish people at the Hanukkah celebration. But I want to go to the Brown
And
University.
by the way, Australia has one of the strictest set of gun control laws on the planet. And you remember, just on point, do you remember Crocodile Dundee?
Yes.
What happened to him?
In real life
Yeah,
or in the movie? I don't know. What
in
happened?
real life. He refused to surrender his firearms, and Australian police forces shot him to death. So,
What?
yeah, that's what happened to him. The guy that played Crocodile Dundee. So, Australia has some of the most draconian anti firearms rules in the whole world. So, when you get this shooting in Australia, just keep it in context. It's not permissive gun laws. In other words, where there's a will, there's a way. And just like they can smuggle in kilos of drugs, they can smuggle in crates of guns. And look at the killings that have occurred in Paris. And French folk are not given the right to keep and bear arms that we are here, but they have frequent shoot 'em ups in Paris and other locations in France because the weapons can be smuggled in. So the only people that are impacted are those who are good, law abiding citizens who are helpless. And by the way, I look at this thing as collateral damage. We like being free. A lot of people have died getting us our rights, whether it's civil rights or warfare. So there's a consequence to being a free people, and it's dangerous. That's like driving on a freeway at 55, 65, 75 miles an hour. It's dangerous, and a moment's inattention can lead to death or mutilation. And sometimes you have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 car pileups with 10, 15 people killed or badly injured, especially in the winter. But nobody's going to say we need to cut down all of the cars and restrict the motor vehicles to just a select cadre of law enforcement, and everybody else has to take the bus or the subway or a train in order to get somewhere. We're not going to do that. We accept the collateral consequences, which is death or mutilation, and a lot of property damage because of the convenience of high-speed transportation that the individual has a right to evoke by driving his own vehicle, assuming he's licensed. And a lot of people aren't very well able to operate a car because they don't do it too well, and the driving tests are light. When I got my first test passed, I was 15 and a half, and it was in California, and that was to get my learner's permit. And then when I was 16, on my 16th birthday, my dad took me down. In those days, for your first driver's license in California, the test was 3 hours. We had to report, and they made us drive on the freeway during rush hour traffic for quite a bit of distance to see if you could operate a vehicle in the heavy traffic. They set up areas where you had to parallel park, where they had a specific amount of distance in front of your vehicle that they measured from your front bumper to your back bumper. You had to get in and out of there without hitting the cones. You had to back for 2 or 3 blocks, tracking down a straight line. You had to do hand signals for your turn, right turn, left turn, slow down or stop with your arm out of the window. And you had to demonstrate
Somebody
proper
say
use of
Paul
the
Hogan
mirror.
is still alive.
What's that? No, he's not alive. I took the tour of the bridge in Sydney, Australia, and it's 900 feet up. They've got pictures of him posted walking along the girders 900 feet up. He painted the bridge before he got discovered, and they published it at great length that he had
I think
died.
no, Paul Hogan, the guy who played Crocodile Dundee, he is alive. He's
He
86.
is? Well,
Yeah.
then that's contrary news that I got. So,
But maybe it's someone else.
well, they were talking about famous Crocodile Dundee, and they had it in the context of
Maybe they were
him
talking about
with
the
his hat,
real
with
life
his,
Judge. They were talking about the real life Crocodile Dundee, not
well,
the actor who played him.
Well, what the actor who played him was a real badass.
Well, he's
They
alive.
Well, hold on. He may be. I hope he is. But here's the way I got it. The last time I went to Sydney, I went on that bridge, and you can climb it. You are up 900 feet when you're at the top, and they make you wear a cable hooked up to a safety cable. And they had pictures of the actor as he worked on the bridge and as he was the actor with the crocodile teeth in his hat.
Right. But
And he
okay.
was up
So let
900
me
feet with no safety harness or anything. And
okay. So
they said he got killed. Now,
no,
that may have
no,
been
no, no, no,
propaganda.
no. No, it's not. For correction, the actor is alive, and they were probably having the picture of the actor where you was at in Australia. However, the story that you just said is accurate because that's the story of the real Crocodile Dundee, Rod Ansell.
Well,
And
it may be.
let me
The
finish.
way it,
Gosh,
yeah, it may be.
let me finish. Let me read it, please. So his life, it said, took a downward turn in the 1990s, and he died in a shootout with police in 1999. So you were talking about the real Crocodile Dundee, Rod Ansell.
Well, it may be, but the way it got presented to me was one of the tour guys, Mike, this guy raw head is playing Crocodile Dundee. All police shot him down because he wouldn't give up his guns. He wouldn't.
Okay.
So, I mean, I had a
Yeah,
discussion with
Crocodile
the
Dundee.
guy, so he may have been exaggerating. I mean, there's no
No, he
telling.
wasn't. He was just
Maybe he
talking about
might have
the real
been.
one, not the actor. But all right, anyway,
Well, still, it's just as bad. In other words, the shooting was in the context of one of the strictest anti-gun laws in the world.
right.
So what does that say? We've got very strict anti-drug laws. I mean, think about a Schedule One drug and how much time you get in the federal system for having heroin or something like that, or opiates or this kind of thing, and or whatever, but we still have the use of the drugs, and the war on drugs hasn't stopped the importation of the kilos of the drugs in question, nor have they stopped the crates of guns that people get offended by. People don't buy this stuff they're using on the streets in a gun show or a gun store. This stuff is contraband, black market, under the table, stolen stuff. Or like the idiot, what's her name, Lori Lightfoot up in Chicago, was trying to fund some street people, and she wound up giving the money to some gangs, and they set up the heist of the several boxcars in the IC rail yard, and that's where they got most of the Glock switches that are out in circulation, because a couple of police departments were going to put the switches in their 17s and use the 17s in a carbine setup so they'd have a cheap submachine gun.
Well, I want to get back to the Bondi Beach terrorist attack. So 15 people were killed when two gunmen targeted Jewish people attending a Hanukkah event. The victims include a 10-year-old girl, British-born rabbi, and retired police officer. 3 people remain in critical condition in a hospital. Another 5 are critical but stable. The attackers have been named in local media as Sajid Hakram, who is 50, and his son, Naveed, 24. The older man died at the scene, and the son is in the hospital. So they are also saying that the terror attack suspects were closely connected to a convicted ISIS terrorist who was busted in 2019, but was dropped from suspicion just after 6 months.
And one of those bunch of them just walked across the southern border 4 years ago, three
But
years ago, two
right.
years ago, and a year ago. So they're here now.
So
And
now,
by the
though,
way,
there's speculation of false flags. Iranian state media and loyalists, including a top general, push conspiracy theories after a deadly shooting targeting Australia's Jewish community on Sunday, with some portraying that the attack was a possible false flag operation and others even praising it. The message emerged even as Iran foreign minister issued a formal condemnation of the shooting at a Hanukkah event. So a false flag is what the definition is: harmful, often militant event or action that is designed to appear as though perpetuated by someone other than the person or group responsible for it. False flags operation are often calculated to generate sympathy for the attack group. The term is sometimes used to describe a deliberate misrepresentation of one's motive, although this sense is less frequent in contemporary usage. So apparently, Iran
In
is
other words, you've heard the theory that the ISIS folk did not, Al Qaeda didn't blow up the Twin Towers, that somebody else did. This is some of the stuff out there for a purpose.
right. So they're saying that it's the Zionists possibly, or Israel probably put this in motion so that Muslims and ISIS and other Muslim terrorist groups can be blamed, so that Jewish people can receive worldwide sympathy in the fight against anti-Semitism.
Did you ever see the Dirty Harry movie with Clint Eastwood called Magnum Force? In other words, there were some cops in there that killed other cops so they could inflame the public into thinking that something was going on involving some militant activity that wasn't really on the table. That's what they're talking about. In other words, sacrifices have to be made. Now, you see, this doesn't ring well with the people now, but when you're talking about worldwide, you have to, well, if you were around as an adult when the NOM was going on, you remember Operation Linebacker when they had a bunch of refurbished B 52Ds with what they called a big belly modification to carry extra iron bombs rather than nukes. So they would go over and fly missions over Vietnam, dropping, I think, the bomb load on a B 52 set up like this was 105 500-pound or 750-pound bombs. And they would have arc light missions where the bombs there would be so many, 105 of these high explosive bombs, not 4 or 5 going off like in a B 17 raid or B 17, and it would just look like an arc when somebody was arc welding or lightning strikes going off. So a lot of Vietnamese died, children, babies, women, old folk, you name it. And people aren't used to this kind of death these days in the United States because they've led a pampered existence. They don't have anybody that lived through, except old folk now who lived through the NOM. They don't have anybody who went through Korea, and they don't have anybody, hardly nobody, that went through World War II and nobody World War I. But in the 60s, you had people who lived through World War I, World War II, and Korea, and some that fought in them. And people were used to large casualty counts. The American Civil War, Gettysburg, we talked about that. You had 83 to 84,000 casualties in 3 days at Gettysburg, which is 7 years ago. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was commemorating a huge death toll. So there weren't that many in all of Vietnam that got snuffed out. And that was just 1 3-day battle. And meanwhile, Grant was down here in Mississippi taking Vicksburg with another heavy casualty count over the campaign that he had waged in order to get there. So this is the American Civil War. In the Civil War, we had more casualties than all of the rest of the wars the U.S. has been in combined. So that, you had people who were alive to talk to people who were still alive who had experienced this. So you had 100-year period of death and destruction, the frontier Spanish-American War, Civil War, you had World War I, World War II, and Korea, and all of these people are used to this kind of violence. And nowadays, we haven't had anything like that where anybody got drafted. You could sign up and volunteer, but people got drafted.
Well, let me say this, going back to the false flags, because the IRGC general calls Israel sole beneficiaries. Excuse me. The narrative was reinforced by comments by Mohammed Reza Nagdeed, a senior IRGC general and top advisor to the force chief commander, who publicly argued that Israel was the sole beneficiary of the attack. In a lengthy statement published by Fars News, Nagdeed asks, one second. Nagdi asks who benefits from the Sydney incident before asserting the answer is clear. The only one who benefits from the Sydney incident is the Zionist regime. Nagdeed framed the shooting as a strategic move to suppress pro-Gaza activism in Australia, claiming Sydney had become one of the most prominent centers of anti-Zionists. He questioned whether the attack will facilitate anti-Zionist protests by the people of Sydney or open the hand of Australian police to suppress them. He also raised a series of rhetorical questions about why the attackers targeted civilians and a place of worship rather than Israeli linked businesses, shipping interests, and Israeli soldiers visiting Australia. Why were ordinary people and a place of worship targeted? Nagdat acts concluding that any act diverting attention from Gaza ultimately helps Zionists.
Well, you might read Menachem Begin's autobiography. He brags he was a prime minister of Israel for a long time, like Netanyahu. And he, in his book, boasted about all of the people he had personally assassinated, all of those he had killed by burning through arson or high explosives. He talked about blowing up schools, mosques, and hospitals. So this has been going on for a while over there. And again, I don't understand why anybody would want to kill anybody over a religious matter, but it seems to be historically popular.
That's what I was about to say. That's been happening since the beginning of time, like with religions and war over religion.
Yeah, and then don't forget the fact that a lot of people have long memories and they talk about somebody who was a hero in 1189 during the Third Crusade when Saladin defeated some of the forces of Jerusalem at a certain battle of Hattin. So it's interesting. By the way, you can see Kingdom of Heaven. They give a pretty
That was a good movie.
accurate rendition of what was going on, but they still sing about that stuff in coffee houses over in the Middle East.
Well, I would
So
say
people
this.
haven't forgotten.
Yeah, I would say this. False flags is a thing. I'm not going to say, oh, that's not true. That sounds like something that whether it's a particular religion or a group or organization have done in the past when you talk about the CIA or even the FBI or other international organizations. They have created these false flags. Now going to
All
the
the time.
Brown University shooting, they haven't arrested anybody. They had arrested one man, then they had to let him go because that was the wrong man. So just a little quick recap. The shooting at Brown University happened inside a classroom in the Burroughs and Holly Engineer building. Give me 1 second. Around 4 p.m. Saturday, 2 Brown University students were killed, 9 students were wounded. Police announced that a person of interest was taken into custody early Sunday morning. Later that night, officials said the individual was being released. The search for the killer remains ongoing as police say surveillance video showing a man dressed in all black is still the most useful to help track down the gunman. One victim had been identified by her church as 19-year-old Ella Cook, a sophomore from Alabama. Cook was also vice president of the Brown University College Republicans. Mohammed Azi Umar Zokov, a freshman, has been identified as the second victim of Brown University shooting. He was a naturalized citizen from Uzbekistan living in Virginia. So I'm sorry, with all this advanced technology, we supposed to have the mighty military. You can't find the shooter?
Somebody said, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, somebody says they can't hear me. Several
Yeah,
up
because
there.
I muted you because when I'm talking, it's like a feedback. So I muted you when I was reading, then I unmuted you.
Okay. Again, this is due process.
On their business.
This is a due process of law situation. It's civilian, it's not military. This is domestic. It's just what happens. And contrary to a lot of the dramatic presentations on TV and at the movies, law enforcement is not populated by a bunch of Sherlock Holmes types. And a lot of times they get it wrong, and it takes a while for them to think it through or get suspects or get information. So,
Well, I would say this. I think the Brown University shooting is also a false flag.
well, I
You
would.
know who that's going to benefit? The Democrats.
Well, of course, they're into this anti-gun thing, but again, it's like if you want a free society, you have to take the risk, and there are certain very negative things that occur as collateral damage when the people get to fend for themselves rather than depending upon big brother or a tranny big sister taking care of them from cradle to grave. That tends to promote a totalitarian situation. So anybody that says they can protect you is lying, because if they're the only ones that have the ability to protect you, then they have the door wide open to oppress you. And we saw Fannie and Tish and Smith and this bunch put lawfare to use, even trying to persecute a former president of the United States, let alone what they would do to ordinary people. And you can see what's happened to me on X. I've never posted some of the foul stuff that they send to my former site. Um, but I can't seem to get any leeway on trying to appeal this. So they shut me down and wiped all of my followers and people I'm following down to zero. So it's interesting that they wanted to silence the voice that I was putting out there. We're trying to give a logical and reasoned analysis in writing of what was going on at the time they're doing. Now, Musk kind of bailed on running X and left it to somebody, a woman who I think is just part of the old time far left jackass crapshoot. But, it is what it is. So typical. There goes the First Amendment, and the ones that are hollering about fascism are the ones that are pushing to be able to rage and rant against boss boogeyman Trump in DC and let the cities they're in charge of go to hell.
Well, one last thing on this false flag stuff, right? 4 people from an anti-capitalist, anti-government extremist group accused of hatching a plot to carry out coordinated bombings in and around Los Angeles on New Year's Eve were in court Monday, as a trans suspect begged the judge to be sent to the woman's jail. What? So
Yeah, ain't it getting freak?
the incredible imminent terrorist threat to 5 unidentified companies' logistics center in Southern California came from a radical members of an offshoot left-wing Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF. FBI Director Kash Patel and other law enforcement officials revealed Monday. The splinter group called themselves the Order of the Black Lotus and passed along an 8-page written document titled Operation Midnight Sun that laid out the bombing plot to the confidential FBI source. According to the complaint, 4 of the suspects were Collard in Lucerne Valley in Mojave Desert,
Mojave.
Mojave Desert, where they were captured on video attempting to test improvised explosive devices. So the quartet, one is 30, 32, 24, and 41, have been charged with conspiracy and possession of unregistered destructive device. The 5th unidentified suspect was arrested in New Orleans while planning a separate attack. They're all white.
The Democratic Party is interesting. It has been rather unique in American history as being a political party, a major political party that has encouraged violent, not protest, but violent overthrow of the government and its means, lawlessness, and general oppression, starting before the Civil War now, all during the 60s when all of the massive protests were going on around the country. None of the political parties were saying, go out and do it. I mean, that just wasn't done. Now the jackass party is doing that. That is what that donkey looking thing is, isn't it? Isn't that a jackass? Another word for it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the group began assembling complex pipe bombs with homemade gunpowder in the desert when FBI agents arrested them on September the 12th. So they was plotting to plan their attack on New Year's in Los Angeles. So Cal and Page also discussed follow-up attacks, including plans to target ICE agents and vehicles with pipe bombs in January and February of next year. Interesting.
You take sulfur, saltpeter, which is sodium nitrate or nitrite, either one.
Yeah, please do not get
And
those. Please don't
no,
do that.
I'm not. It's
No,
basic
but don't say it.
chemistry.
Don't say it. Please don't.
Well,
Just don't. Don't.
okay, I won't, but why not?
Because you cannot, because community guidelines, and we're not going down that rabbit hole right
So
now.
wait a minute, wait, hold on. Who? Well, I won't because of you, but you mean to tell me that they want to go off with this bullshit off of something that we got taught in 5th grade, 6th grade chemistry in elementary school, and then backed up in the 9th grade, and then the 11th grade in chemistry? We made the stuff. It's been known for more than 1,000 years. The Chinese made it. So if you were interested in making it, the recipe has been out there for 1,000 years. And you mean to tell me that these jackasses are worried about you publishing a 1,000-year-old idea that is well known, that everybody on the planet Earth knows how to make? This isn't anything confidential. So they are upset about that?
What if you want to go on your own time and look it up? Fine, but on here, you cannot
Oh,
say
God
how to do that.
damn. What is wrong with these
Well,
people?
honestly, I really don't care. I want to move on. Well, I want to go back
No,
to.
no, no. See, this is important.
No,
This
it's
is
not. It's not.
this has become something that was widespread, widely known. This was a frontier. Everybody on the frontier in a wagon knew how to do this. So now all of a sudden you've
But
got some
they're not
jackass
doing
little
that.
sissies running around talking about this stuff is forbidden to discuss this. I'm not advocating that you go make it and use it. It's just, of course, somebody could come up with it. It's so simple to make. So, I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, well, I want to move. I want to go back to this Brown University because I want to play a clip of the president of the university blaming Trump. It sounds like.
Oh, goddamn. Do we have to listen to another asshole?
Come on, yes.
As I mentioned at the press briefing before this, I'll reiterate right now. In this day and age, there is a lot of misinformation that can spread. As it pertains to official updates regarding the shelter in place or any future announcements, please follow the City of Providence official social media channels. We've also put out updates through our 311 system, but the City of Providence on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram will be updating throughout the evening. If that did not come from an official channel, then it is not official. Right now, the
Colonel, to make sure that all the... At this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to our Governor Dan McKee.
Thanks, Mayor. And just like all of us, we want to see the individual that pulled the trigger on these young kids identified, apprehended, and brought to justice. I can tell you from the state level, we're continuing to coordinate our state police and instructed the Colonel to make sure that all the resources that are available are being employed through the direction of the mayor, but that partnership is incredibly important.
So let me just say this.
So I didn't hear any attack on Trump so far. Good.
No,
I'm
but he
tired
was
of it.
getting misinformation. So they do subliminal stuff. And it's like, dude, your whole operation is nothing but misinformation because this is an Ivy League Brown University, people paying over 40, 50,000 annually. And you mean to tell me you don't have cameras throughout the campus and in the buildings for such as this, or for an attack, or somebody's being harassed? Where is the technology? Where is the security? And I'm sorry, if I'm paying that much money in tuition, or any parents or students paying that much money, and you can't make sure that you have security cameras or drones or anything in place so you could capture an assailant like this, they have not found the shooter. Now, again, when we talk about false flags, this sounds very suspicious.
May I interject something? Any school that had any operation like you're describing in that place, I'd leave. I wouldn't attend a school like that or any place else. That is surveillance. I know it's supposed to make public places safe, but they don't use it for safety. They use it to snoop on what you're up to see who you're meeting. They started this stuff way back 50 years ago with primitive versions. And they wanted to find out who you were meeting with, where you were going, when you were going. And that's just an intolerable intrusion on Americans' personal freedom. I hate that. So, yeah, it might make you safe, but the bottom line is you don't need it if you let the people deal with their Second Amendment circumstances like they used to, and not even in the recent past, before that. And you have to rely on the people themselves developing common sense, a sense of decency and protocol, so they do not get raised, socialized, and acculturated wrong and glorified dysfunction. But I mean, you put that in, you might be safe, but Big Brother is snooping, and they already are able to tune in on too much of what you do. So you live in a fishbowl now, and there's no such thing as privacy. That is an important consideration. Now, do you want to give up all of your privacy rights? So maybe somebody decides to make a little side buck and say, hey, I know where your wife was yesterday and who she was talking to, or
Yeah,
who your husband
see,
saw.
your generation, no, I'm not talking about violating somebody's privacy. I'm talking about security cameras.
Well, the problem is the most secure places
Let me
ever
say
were
this. Let me say this.
totalitarian.
If I'm paying that, especially if I'm paying that kind of money, you need to have security cameras everywhere.
I'm not going to a place that has that many
I
security cameras.
am.
I won't be
Because
there.
first of all, I'm not doing anything that's breaking the law. But if
I
somebody,
don't care. I don't want anybody to know
I
what the
do,
hell I'm up to, even if
I
I'm
do,
walking down the
I
sidewalk.
do, I do.
I don't.
But we have them. We have that.
And that is a breakdown of the American way, too.
So
Big Brother is snooping.
but Big Brother's been here. Big Brother's been here.
Yes, I know. It needs to be cut back. The
So
country's constipated. It needs an enema.
No. Well, to your point, if you can't find a mass shooter, then what is the point of Big Brother?
Well, let's put it this way. They seem to have done well enough in the past without the high technology. You ask people, talk to people, you investigate,
Again,
you do your job. Stop trying to make it easy.
Big Brother is here, it's been here, it's advancing, but when it's time to utilize Big Brother to protect citizens, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. It only works when you want to invade our privacy, like you're saying, but it doesn't work to protect us.
You should be able to protect yourself. You should have a
They
certain
only
amount of law and order and decorum where people gather. Unfortunately, for the last 55, 60 years, there have been factions that have been trying to push lawlessness, disorder, a lack of appreciation for functionality and decency, and push disrespect and socialize and acculturate its youth into being little monsters who are out of control. Look at the Democrats. They've been saying, go out there and do this. They've been pushing it. They've been trying to turn everything into a hate scene on behalf of their little corrupt bunch of freaks playing rainbow. Not all, I'm not talking about gay folk, but that rainbow cult. It's a theology, it's a devilish theology. And something needs to be done about reining it in. You can't put the indicia of anybody else's theology in a public place, but you can put theirs. You can't make anybody follow something or force teach somebody else's theology, but you can this one. And something is way wrong with the republic when this is a tolerated. It should not be.
Well, I want to. Well, before we go on to Rob Reiner, please everyone hit the like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Share this live stream on your social media outlets. If you're watching on X, hi to everybody on X. Please like and repost and bookmark on X. So, guys, please hit the like button. And if you have a question or a comment, please send it in via super chat. I didn't have time to set up a goal, and I'm not about to do it now. So, oh, and thank you to Deeds for the Cash App. Thank you, girl. And so let's swing a little bit into a little bit of pop culture here, right? This is sad. So Rob and Michelle Reiner were murdered by their son Nick. They're saying his son Nick's hotel room full of blood after the murder. He's locked up on a $5 million bail, I believe. So Rick Reiner, who was under arrest for the murder of Rob and Michelle Reiner, checked into the Santa Monica hotel early Sunday morning, left a trail of blood behind. Nick checked into the Pierside Santa Monica 4 a.m. Sunday using his credit card. His check-in came hours after he got into a heated argument with his father at the Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. Eyewitnesses who saw Nick check in say he seemed tweaked out, but there was no visible signs he had been in a violent confrontation. We're told definitely no blood stains or cuts on his body. So this is the picture of his son. He's been basically having mental problems throughout the years. Nick was eventually tracked down and arrested 20 miles away in Exposition Park near downtown Los Angeles. So it says the Reiners had problems for years trying to help Nick kick his substance abuse, largely to no avail. I know they say he was living the streets at one point. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Have you ever met Rob Reiner?
No, but mental illness is a problem, and we have gotten nice so we don't treat it. Everybody has to be touched with kid gloves. So, oh my God, we can't even talk about it. We can't call them a nut job or crazy anymore. Not even challenged because it's not nice, but they kill. They cause a lot of problems. And too many of the institutions that we used to have are now long closed.
So, I mean, he stabbed him to death. And they're saying that they it's reports saying that, Rob Reiner's throat was slit or whatever. Um, that's serious. So,
It's serious. Taking people's life is serious, but humans have been doing it for a long, long time. If it's sanctioned, it's war on a mass scale and you get a medal for it. If it's just individual, you go to jail for it most of the time.
well, Trump, he posted on Truth Social. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling, but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. One second. Sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace.
Well, horror. Absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service, that the memorial they had, was exactly right. And totally, I believe, I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in doing to others, and I believe in forgiveness. And what she said to me was beautiful and absolutely, what she forgave his assassin. And I think that is admirable.
And so I guess he was talking probably about Charlie Kirk. So yeah, so what do you think about Trump post? Do you think that was too insensitive?
Like I said, when it comes to news, I don't get all this sensitivity. Just give us the facts and the observations and the hard conclusions, and we need to learn to handle it. The world is not a nice place, so why fool people? That's that crap that started back with the liberal women years ago. I want happy news. Well, then I don't feel like being bothered with it. Tell me something that's interesting in terms of it's either noteworthy economically, politically, or something out of the ordinary that ought to galvanize people into tending to public order.
People are upset that Trump posted that because
Why? It's truthful. It's apparently truthful. Too
ah,
much
but
of that. They have been setting up a violent situation by raging against the president in a fashion that some years ago would have gotten them arrested for making threats against the president, which is against American law. They've been inciting people to get violent, and then when what they've been preaching gets followed, they seem to act like it's horrible. He expressed a remorse for the persons who met their demise, which was respectful, but he made a comment. They either do or they don't do that Trump derangement syndrome. It's like that's what's wrong with our cities right now. The Democrats have control of most of the major cities, but instead of doing something to make them economically prosperous and places of order, peace, and dignity. They do the exact opposite, and the only thing they have is we attack the boogeyman. So we go after the boogeyman, and you can have theft and death in your city. We don't care, but most important, we have to go after the boogeyman because we don't have anything affirmative to offer you, and we have failed at our responsibility to run things in a lawful, efficient, viable fashion. We just don't do it. So all we can say is go after Trump, go after Trump. He's the boogeyman. Well, actually, it looks like he's the one that's got the enema bulb in his hand, getting ready to stick it up the ass of the Republican, give it a good shot of whatever the juice is, and get the shit out. And it stinks when it comes out. So that's what we have.
So I just want to do a quick recap of his bio. Rob Reiner is politically, he was a liberal activist, co-founder of American Foundation of Equal Rights, which initiated the court challenges against California Proposition 8 that banned same-sex marriage in the state. He
By
chaired
the
the
way, that was on the California ballot several times and it passed overwhelmingly in California, but attacked it. But, so the California Supreme Court outlawed it, even though the people wanted it.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
Excuse me.
I want to go down to his movies, right? Oh, well, of course, he played the son in Archie Bunker, All in the Family.
Who did that?
Rob Reiner. That was the huh?
Okay. I don't remember him as that, but all right.
He was the son of Archie Bunker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the mustache and the long hair. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see here. He directed Misery, A Few Good Men, and Ghosts of Mississippi. He was in a lot of films.
I
But
didn't see any of those. I don't think. Go ahead. Too bad.
well, everyone knows him as, and what was his name? Let me look in the chat. Meathead. Okay, so was that was his, oh, the son, I'm sorry, the son-in-law. He was the son-in-law to Archie Bunker. And Archie Bunker always called him Meathead. Archie's son-in-law. Sorry, guys. Yeah. You ever watched that show, All in the Family?
No. Just once or twice to see what it was about.
What shows did you watch in the
I didn't
70s?
watch much television when I was in college.
Oh, you were
I
in college
watched,
in the 70s?
yes, a law school where I was setting up a law practice or doing what I did. I watched Star Trek. It was a great idea. They lacked a good script writer because it was always kind of over moralistic and generally boring, except for a few of the moments when they had the real gonky looking monsters. And Kirk would always solve the problem by thought. And I always said, how in the world do you get a 25-year-old commanding a huge, several 100,000 ton vessel that's so expensive that in the storyline they could only afford 7 of them in the whole galactic enterprise? But,
Well, his character in All in the Family was Michael, but I
yeah.
guess
I
Archie
was
called.
just, I don't know anything about that. I've seen it 2 or 3 times. I have a vague recollection, but I detest and despise sitcoms.
Oh my God. First of all, back in the day, those were the classic sitcoms. They were
I
better than
couldn't
any of
stand
them.
them. They made me revolted. They were too stupid. They weren't humorous. They were slapstick.
You have no sense of humor.
I have a sense of
No,
humor.
you
I
don't.
like
No,
humor.
you
I
do
do
not.
not like stupid.
Who told you you had a sense of humor? No,
I
you don't.
enjoy a good stand-up comic. I really
No.
enjoyed Richard Pryor.
Who's your favorite comic? Richard Pryor. Who else?
Was Richard Pryor, Arsenio, not Arsenio,
Eddie Murphy.
no. Um,
Exactly. You
he
can't even
got
think of it.
canceled a couple of times. What is his name?
They all got canceled. If they're good,
Dave Chappelle.
okay.
I
That's
like
more
Dave
modern.
Chappelle. I
I'm talking about
liked,
when you were young, growing up. What did you?
well,
You
there
don't
were,
have to. Did you like Red Fox?
he was okay.
If you like Richard Pryor, you gotta like Red Fox.
I like Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was more sophisticated than Red Fox. Red Fox was okay. I like Dave Chappelle. Let's see.
Why
I
you keep
like
saying Red Fox wasn't sophisticated?
no.
They
There
have the
were
same.
constraints on what you could tell as a joke back then.
And they broke all those rules. Richard Pryor and Red Fox. They wasn't.
Red Fox was back from the 1930s. They didn't break a whole lot of them
What
like
are you
that.
talking about? Red Fox was not what? He was probably born around that time.
Well, Mom's Mabley and all of that bunch too, yeah. But I think the penultimate comedian was
He
Richard
was born in
Pryor, and I
1922.
think Ray Macias was also good, and Dave Chappelle. I like them. They're sophisticated wit.
What about Paul Mooney?
No,
Bernie Mac?
nah.
You
He
have no
right
sense
as
of
an
humor?
actor. He was a comic actor, but he wasn't.
No,
And
he
he
was
was
one of
good.
that.
He was good at what he did. But I mean, as a stand-up comedian,
He was the best. He was one of the
no,
best.
he wasn't.
That's how he
Wasn't there.
started.
I
Yes,
know,
he
but
was.
that he was a
No,
good.
yes, he
Look.
was.
That's your opinion, not mine. He was
Okay.
a great actor, a comedic actor.
What movies did he play in? You don't even know.
I didn't watch most of them, but
Exactly. So how do you know he was a great actor?
I saw some of his performances. They were pretty good. But I'm just saying,
Where? What was the
you
most
asked
famous one?
me. I've been around a long time, but you asked me
You
what
didn't see
who
not one
you
Bernie
asked
Mac
me
movie.
who I said were the best: Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle, Ray
And that's it.
Macias.
Who? What was that last one you said?
He was kind of a Hispanic or a Latino.
What's his name
Richard
again?
Pryor, Macias.
Okay. All right. Moving on.
He did some really funny stuff. He was a radio DJ and he had a comedy thing on TV for a while.
All right. Well, staying on pop culture a little bit longer here. Diddy. Let me see. So let me make this. Can I? No, I can't. So I'm just going to do it this way.
Files. Okay, that's
All
going
right.
where?
So Diddy files $1 billion lawsuit against Netflix over 50 Cent documentary called The Reckoning that is still #1 on Netflix. So it says Sean Diddy Combs is threatening to sue Netflix for airing docuseries that is, to say the least, unflattering to him. The music mogul cease and desist letter claims the series Sean The Reckoning uses stolen footage. The footage includes Combs launching into a tyrant against former Danny King and Diddy Dirty Money artist Dawn Richards after learning of her sexual harassment lawsuit against him and strategizing with attorneys days before his September 24 arrest. Asked how he got the footage, executive producer 50 Cent. Hold on for a second. Too much feedback. Asked how he got the footage, executive producer 50 Cent Jackson declined to answer, explaining, I figured most journalists would not disclose their sources. Side note, some federal appealing judges could learn a thing or two without about journalist source confidentiality from Jackson. I don't know why they put that there.
New York Times versus Sullivan, U.S. Supreme Court, 1962. It lays it out in pretty large detail. So, yeah, I
Well,
doubt this is going anywhere.
Well, it says Michael Aberlis, a documentarian who Combs hired to film, blamed a freelancer who said he hired to briefly fill in for him while he was away. In any event, series director Alexandra Stapleton says her team obtained the footage lawfully. Assuming Stapleton is telling the truth, Combs argued that Netflix is responsible for her source alleged misconduct shouldn't fare well. It was rejected by the Supreme Court in 2001 case Barnicki versus Whooper, and for a good reason. The media has a First Amendment right to publish. Combs,
Mm.
Combs, of course, thinks the rules don't apply to him, hence the current address in the federal whatever. But the same reasoning that protected the Pennsylvania radio host reporting on illegal recorded conversations about school union negotiations in the Bart Nickel case also protects streaming giants airing docuseries about alleged predatory celebrities. Have you heard of that case?
Mm-hmm.
Then Bart
And
Nickel.
all it does basically is reiterate New York Times versus Sullivan, where they discuss public figures.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's upset about that, him and his girlfriend having that gigolo come in the cup and then them swallowing it. Wasn't that what he was talking about on this thing?
Yeah, so apparently it says unless Netflix hacked Combs' computer, broke into his home, or otherwise stole the footage, the Supreme Court says Combs, to quote his debut album, has no way out. Combs' legal team may think that it's unfair given that he didn't intend for the footage to go public, but that's his problem, not Netflix.
That's probably about right.
For similar reasons, any copyright claim Combs could bring against Netflix should fail under the fair use doctrine following excerpts of the copyrightable materials to be used for journalism and commentary, among other purposes. Do you want to comment on that? On fair use?
About the right the way it goes. Fair use and New York Times versus Sullivan. It is what it is. So, if you don't want this stuff out about you, then don't do it.
Well, that's easy said and done.
I know, but when you're talking about freaks, see, the other thing here is this is who youth are holding up as heroes, this kind of person. And I mean, okay, he's an entertainer. He's entitled to do what he wants to do this way. I mean, if you want to get your freak on, get your freak on, but it's still freak and it's not exactly the type of thing that, wow, this is what you need to go out and act like. I mean, just think about it. The attack on manhood being what it is today, and you get somebody likes to go, well, anyway, the taste that he was talking about. So, it's what it is, but it's not exactly anything I would tell anybody to emulate. Come on now.
Well, if the lawsuit is filed, it says it could become one of the biggest legal battles in Hollywood history.
It won't be much of anything because probably you will get some court that is very indisposed to be sensitive to Hollywood in the first damn place, jack them up. And if they do Hollywood, if it's federal, it'll wind up in front of the Ninth Circuit, which in a lawsuit involving the cast and crew of So You Want to Be a Millionaire against ABC and Disney, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the full 9-member panel said, we will teach this industry some values that they seem to ignore. And instead of giving the plaintiffs their requested $7 million, they gave them $580 million in 2011. That was the full Ninth Circuit. The U.S. Supreme Court denied a hearing, left a ruling to stand, and Black Panther and Wakanda came about because ABC and Disney needed cash to pay the interest on the judgment that was still outstanding, that had ramped up to about $1.25 billion by the time the Panther movie came out, and the plaintiffs were threatening to take the Disney properties, most of Orlando and Anaheim and ABC properties, and they were literally over barrel. The britches were down, and they didn't have any KY to lubricate. So they came up with Black Panther, which was the highest grossing superhero movie of all time, and Black Americans patronized that heavily. And in fact, the place in the United States with the heaviest turnout was unfortunately Memphis, Tennessee, which I was acutely embarrassed by, particularly when we got to the scene at the end of the movie where the Black men and Black women were in active armed combat with each other, trying to kill each other off, and the women were treasonous to the state, and they went to some outside help, some people that lived in Africa who lived in caves where there was snow on the ground. Now, just think about that. And then they had a situation where, with this technology, you never saw a male involved in it except pushing a cart in the background or with a Ubangi disc in his lip, being a high priest or something. And they had a virtual fighter plane, but they couldn't find a Black man to fly it. They had to get a former white CIA agent to fly their airplane. And Killmonger, who was the villain booed by the audience, was the one that actually sounded like Stan Lee's Black Panther.
Well,
So it was an embarrassing farce.
swinging it back to Diddy and the lawsuit. See, Netflix is in negotiations. They have agreed to buy Warner Brothers, is one of, and which would be one of the biggest deals in Hollywood history. Government regulators must decide whether Netflix. Hold on for a second. Government regulators must decide whether Netflix would be too powerful with key WBD assets. The major question is, who does Netflix actually compete with, right? Will buying Warner Brothers give Netflix too much power? I would think so. Does Netflix compete with only paid streaming services, a market where it dominates? So again, if Netflix is a powerful entity right about now. And listen, if they sit up here and they do buy Warner Brothers, they're going to be basically untouchable. So you're right. This Diddy lawsuit really isn't going anywhere. And I don't think he has the money or the muscle to go up against Netflix.
Oh, you can go against Netflix. Look at the cast and crew of So You Want to Be a Millionaire. They have ABC and Disney across the barrel. That was that was the point. The other thing is the alternative is Paramount trying to acquire Warner Brothers. And if there's a bunch of crooks, a whole lot of whom need to be in jail, it was at least the prior management of Paramount. It's a pathetic mess, and it's a stain on the American business environment. They are really, really some reprehensible people. I don't know about the new management that acquired Paramount, but Paramount was a Viacom property, and I used to work for them, and I had more hassles with the crooked bastards than you could think of. They cheated, they lied, they stole, they misappropriated, they violated contracts, and they'd always try to stay ahead of the cash flow problem by offering you a better contract. So same thing that the Ninth Circuit did with Disney and ABC. They just said they don't seem to understand the first principle of American contract law, and that is that all parties are expected to deal with each other in good faith. Therefore, perhaps this will get their attention. And the Ninth Circuit kicked their ass. Now, that's needed to happen to Paramount even more so than Disney, ABC, and I don't know what the current management of their Paramount is like, but the whole of Hollywood no longer can afford what it does. And if you want to see this graphically right before your eyes, next time you go to a movie, pay attention to the opening credits and see how many studios are in there. Metro Golden Mayer and another enterprise, the one where the boys up in the moon, and you got a whole bunch of studios, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them in a major movie, and they each put up liability from which they get a share, even though they're from rival studios because they can't afford to do what they do anymore. And West Germany was financing Hollywood up until about 25 years ago, and they bailed and decided to put their money in now unified Germany. So that dried up. I don't care. It's a crooked industry, probably the most corrupt, crooked, and ill-run industry in the United States of America, with the most influence on how people think.
Well, I want to swing back to politics. So just two more things before we get up out of here. I'm going to go to Jasmine Crockett, right? Because she put her bid in for Senate. She's running for senator for the state of Texas. However, she is in a battle for the Democrat primary, and her opponent, James Tallarico. So it says Jasmine Crockett leads James Tallarico by 8 points. 1 second.
Yeah, well, we will be. Anyway, it's the bankruptcy of the Democratic Party. They still have to run against a Republican opponent.
Yes, and there hasn't been a Democrat senator out of Texas in over 30 years. So I guess she thinks because she is on a national stage that maybe she has a shot.
Yeah, I'd still bet on the snowball surviving hell before her. You know, the old saying, you got the chances of a snowball not melting in hell.
I guess, but I think she's going to have a hard time because she made some remarks about Latino voters. And in the state of Texas, Latinos make up 45% of the population. So if you don't win their vote on the Democrats and even get some Republicans to vote for you, you're not going to win at all. So I want to share what she said.
What Malcolm X said still holds true. A processed head reflects a processed mind, and she's got a very processed hairdo and barn door eyelashes.
Let me play this.
Under the wire decision for Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett to run for re-election to her House seat or shoot for the U.S. Senate. The Congresswoman announced her bid for Senate on Monday, joining an already somewhat crowded Democratic field. Joining us now is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So congratulations on your announcement.
Thanks.
Your official announcement is just a video of you, an image of you, while insults of President Trump of you play in the background. Why that decision? I mean, one of your opponents, Tallarico, he had a video, him with constituents, him with Texans. Why you solo?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to do something different. Because number one, in order to flip the state of Texas, we're going to have to do something that we've never done. So I wanted to stay on brand with the fact that we would be different. I also wanted people to understand who the president sees as a real threat, and it is me. He also made it clear a number of times that he sees me as a leader. Those were his words, not mine. And so I wanted to do that. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to do a real announcement with actual people, nothing that was staged. I wanted the real people, and so it had to be in that moment. So I also wanted to make sure that we delivered a full speech that had all the substance there. So on that same day, if you were paying attention or if you were interested, you got the full meat of what it is that I want to do as the next senator in the state of Texas, as well as I did this with the people right there at home in my district.
So last night you told Laura Coates on this network that you don't need to get all the Trump voters in order to win the Senate seat, assuming you win the Democratic nomination. We should note President Trump won Texas pretty handily by about 14 percentage points. So you don't need every Trump voter, but you need a big chunk of them. Explain the math to me. How does any Democrat, but especially one who is progressive and outspoken, how do you win over Trump voters?
So this is what I want to tell you about. There's two things that we need to talk about that are separate things that I think both of them are necessary to win. Number one, we actually have to turn out more voters. If you do the research on the state of Texas, we typically rank the lowest in voter turnout period in the country. We've got to get that up. I want to say the most recent one that I remember, maybe a little over 50% of people turned out. When we looked at Georgia and we saw Georgia go blue, what they were able to do is they were able to get more people to participate. So that's number one. So for me, it was always about expanding the electorate. Number two, this is a great talking point that we've heard over and over and over, that maybe you need to sound like a Trumper so you can get Trumpers to be on board. But what we know is that there were Trump and Mondami voters. There were Obama and Trump voters. There were AOC and Trump voters. So a lot of people want to distill this down into something as simple as, oh, it's progressive or it's this. But the reality is that people vote for who they believe in. They vote for the people that they believe really care about bettering their lives. And what we know is apparent is that a lot of people have been turned off by Trump. When we look at Tennessee, I'm not asking you to look far north or over in California. When you look at the red state of Tennessee, he won that seat by over 20 points, yet it came within single digits. When you look at Mississippi, they flipped 2 Senate seats. When you look at Georgia on November 4th, they elected 2 Democrats statewide. So what I am seeing is people are finally saying, you know what, even those that voted for Trump, because there's plenty that regret it. And I think that those people would be more willing to listen at this point. But I think you've got to expand the electorate, and you got to talk to anybody who actually says, you know what, he played us.
Let me tell you.
Well, I don't regret voting for him.
I don't regret. I'm going to vote for anything he runs for again, but he can't. Likely as not, he won't even try, but his vice president certainly is going to get my vote when they have the next presidential contest. By the way, she came through Memphis and went to Rhodes College. She's one of the typical local Democratic idiots that we have here, where they would rather have theft and death in their cities than acknowledge Trump could do anything. And they have no positive plans. Even Mondani had a program, even though it sounded like the posturing of an idiot, but he can't do it because he doesn't have the authority under his state laws to do it. But it was a nice talk up, but she has nothing to offer except being anti-Trump, which is a sick way to campaign. And I don't think the state of Texas is going to buy into her bullshit. She has a district, a congressional district, which is a small number of people. It was gerrymandered on the front end so somebody like her could get in office. Now it no longer exists, so what's the point? So she's picking the Senate, and I think she's got less chance of getting out of that without getting melted down than a snowball would have escaping from hell unscathed.
I want to finish playing the rest of it, because in this segment, this part of the interview where she makes a comment trying to backtrack what she said about the Latino voters.
Let me ask you about a quote that you've made that has some Democrats worried about your ability to win statewide. In a December 2024 Vanity Fair profile, you talked about, quote, and I'm going to read a lot of the quote just to put it in the context, quote, all the complexities within the Latino community The immigration thing has always been something that has perplexed me about this community. It's basically like, I fought to get here, but I left y'all where I left y'all, and I want no more y'all to come here. If I wanted to be with y'all, I would stay with y'all, but I don't want y'all coming to my new home. It almost reminds me of what people would talk about when they would talk about kind of like slave mentality and the hate that some slaves would have for themselves. It's almost like a slave mentality that they have. Now, about the time that that was published last year, around 1 million Latino voters in Texas were voting for Trump. Do they all have slave mentality?
No, and that's not what that said at all, to be clear. It did not say that every Latino has that type of mentality.
No, but the ones that vote for people who believe in strong or Trump's immigration policies.
So I don't believe that the people that voted for Trump believe in what they're actually getting. That is number one. What Trump said is that he was going to kick out the bad guys. And that's what I was talking about. I've been down to the border. I've been down to South Texas. I've campaigned down there. And so I am talking about exactly what was going on when I was down there on behalf of the Beto campaign. In fact, when he was running for governor, I was sent as a surrogate. And I said, talk to me about what is going on. Why is it that they believe that they can win Latinos down here? Like, I don't understand what's happening. And there were people that were saying that they had fought and they had done everything the right way, and that there were bad people that were coming that were doing it the wrong way. And so they were saying, no, we left. And I mean, when you think about people that are leaving asylum, they are leaving areas and situations that they feel like are harmful to them. So yes, they're like, no, I don't want to be in this dangerous situation. And that's what I meant. But at the same time, I knew what Trump meant, because Trump had a record. Trump had a record of locking up kids and putting them in cages. So I knew what Trump meant. And so that's why it wasn't making sense to me. And ultimately right now, I just came from a joint hearing that we were having on the Senate side. It's the Senate as well as the House. The first time I've had a joint hearing ever since I have been in the House. And I was listening to Latino American citizens that have been arrested by this regime. Some of those people may have voted for Trump. I don't know. But they agree that what he's doing now is wrong. And it's about right versus wrong and not right versus left. And he sold them a bag of goods. And I knew that that's what he was selling because I knew his record.
All right, Jasmine Crockett, we'll leave.
Your record is shit. So what do we got to say about that? And the other thing is check this out. See, what she doesn't, she's all over the place. She's as bad as Kamala Harris in terms of being incoherent. But the bottom line is there are a lot of good Mexican citizens who waited in line, did it the right way, took the courses, took the test, waited their turn, and now they're bringing in people that nobody has checked. They get to jump the line and not go through the deal. And these good Hispanic citizens are saying, we don't want the cartels in here. They made our homeland, previous homeland, a hell. We don't want the drugs in here. We don't want the lawlessness in here. We want good American citizens like we are. That's like saying you were German. I live in Germantown, Tennessee, right? That's the name of the place. So do you mean all of the Germans in the United States were trying to invite the Nazis over here in World War II? Do you mean all of the Italian folk that I know in the United States were trying to invite Mussolini over, Benito over here to run his brand of fascism? No, they weren't. See, they were loyal Americans. So do you think the Japanese that were the sensei that participated in so far the most highly decorated U.S. military unit in American history over there fighting in Italy, they approved of Pearl Harbor? No, they didn't. But you see, she seems to think that just because somebody has the identity, they're supposed to identify with the illegality. Maybe that's her problem because she doesn't seem to offer anything other than I'm black and I'm female, therefore vote for me, because I haven't heard any policy out of her. I haven't heard any introduction or sponsored legislation out of her. I've heard a whole bunch of stupid, crazy stuff that gives a bad name to the public defender's office. And you know I'm always defending public defenders, but she was one, and as idiot as she acts and what she says, she would be I wouldn't want a public defender like her.
But here's the thing, though, because she's not going to win because her talking points is just anti-Trump. Voters in a state, because Senate is that's local. It's Congress. That's all local elections. They want to know, what are you going to do for them in that state? They don't give a damn about what's going on nationally or federally. And she keeps talking about anti-Trump this, anti-Trump that, and she needs to stop because her opponent is not talking about Republicans or Trump. He is actually admitting to the faults of the Democrats. And I want to play this clip.
But see, here's the big thing. Even if she wins the Democratic primary, she's going to have a Republican opponent for the main election.
Right. So her opponent is James Tallarico, who is a Texas native. He's 26 years old, and he was on this show Jubilee. And
Are you sure 26?
I mean, I'm sorry, 36.
'Cause you got to be 30 to run for U.S. Senate.
36. And so he was on Jubilee, and he was talking about the
Okay, point in question. Usually in American law, if you violate the law, you should not be rewarded. In other words, it's like going out. If you are a convicted felon, I don't care what you have been up to, you're not supposed to be in possession of a firearm. All right. So you just blew the rest of your life by what you did. That's a punishment for doing something felonious. And by the way, it is criminal. It's Title 8, Section 1324 of the United States Criminal Codes. And that punishes, for example, setting up a sanctuary city as being a felony. So the people that help that's felonious and they should be in jail. Now, there are a lot of people that need to be indicted and should, and if American law works fair, they will be. This whole thing about breaking in, if they broke the law on the front end, how can you expect them to be good citizens and follow the law in the future if they chose to scoff law it on the front end? You see, and they're not juveniles, they're adults we're talking about. They broke the law, so they should be deported.
here's the thing. Here's what I want to say about him, because when you listen to Jasmine Crockett and you're listening to him, two different types of approaches. He actually, to be a Democrat, and he admitted what Biden did and that administration did at the border was wrong.
It was messed up.
And so let me finish. And so he admitted that, and I respect that. And he's speaking to policy. She is not. She is too focused on Trump, which is why I think that she is not. Well, first of all, she's not going to win the Senate because she won't be able to beat the Republican. But I don't even want her to be able to get out of the primary. Now, she probably has more financial backing in her war chest than he does, but he sounds like a decent Democrat. And in other words, he didn't want to come out and say close the border and lock them up. But what he did say is there should not be 10 million illegals in this country. He didn't say those exact words, but that's exactly what he was getting around. And he also admitted there is no pathway. There is not. Because before this mass illegal migrant crisis that the Biden administration calls, people coming here illegally, even though Obama deported the most, over 3 million, but people that were coming here illegally, or people that came here the right way, it takes them over 10 years just to get a green card, and even longer than that to become a citizen in some incidents. So our immigration department is disorganized, unorganized. And then now you had a prior administration that was literally breaking state and federal laws, having open borders, open sea, and open air for illegals to just come into this country without even being vetted. But at least he admitted what Joe Biden did was wrong. She doesn't. And then you, on top of that, Jasmine Crockett is calling Latino voters, saying that they have a slave mentality voting for Trump. But those are the same people you're going to have to convince at least 5% to vote for your ass.
So you don't have a slave mentality because you vote for her because she's a black female and nothing else, and you vote for the slave party, the Democratic Party that was founded to advance slavery, started the Civil War to maintain slavery, did Jim Crow, segregation to maintain a virtual condition of slavery and separation. Yeah, that party. And we're supposed to listen to you talking about somebody else being slavish when we know what the propaganda truth is. You flip the script and accuse the other side of what you are about. And that's exactly what she shows. She's got a processed head, and that reflects a processed mind. She doesn't have an original thought in there. She just spouts the Democratic Party BS about evil Trump, the boogeyman, the what is it, Baba Yaga.
I'm gonna
Might as
play this
well
last
bring
clip here.
in John Wick. Now, who is this?
I wanna play this last clip. This is a person on TikTok, but I like what she had to say about Jasmine Crockett.
One thing I know about Republicans up on Capitol Hill is when they tell you they're going to do something, they've already done it. The plan has been finalized and they've moved on to the next objective. Okay, so by the time the public finds out about it, it's already too late. You can't do anything about it. Why do I say all of this? Because if you do a simple Google search in regards to why Jasmine Crockett is running for senator, she did not get the blessing from the Democratic Party. She was convinced by the Republican Party via the Republican Senatorial Convention to run for Senate. I didn't put two and two together until I seen the video of the Speaker of the House talking about, we are happy that she is running. We want her to run. And I'm like, why? And then I went on her website. This is not about the people of Texas. She don't give a fuck about the people of Texas. She's running for Senate because of her ego. Because her ego is bruised due to the fact that she's the first sitting congresswoman to lose her district. And while people in the comment section do not have the intellectual range or comprehension to know the difference between seat and district, she didn't lose her seat because by law, she's still a sitting member of Congress. It's just she don't have a district. But the reason why she lost her district, outside of the fact that it was gerrymandering, was all by design when she decided that she wanted to wage war on the Republican Party by herself. She has no allies. And while y'all in there attacking me, talking about that I have to, pledge fealty or loyalty to her all because she's a black woman, I don't subscribe to identity politics, never have and never will. You're hating, you're just jealous. How could I possibly be jealous of a congresswoman that has no districts? She has no allies. She's running for Senate because of her ego. They're setting her up. And y'all don't even see it. Stevie Wonder can see that shit. But I'm going to end it with this. Anybody who has a marketing background, anybody who has a copyright background, I would challenge you, go on her website and count how many times you see the word I. It's right there on her website. It's not about the people. It's about her ego. She is fueling and feeding her own ego. But hey, I wish her nothing but the best of luck. We're going to see how this is going to roll. It's one thing to declare war or have a beef with one or two members of the Republican Party, but to declare war on the entire Republican Party at all levels of government, and you're alone and unafraid and by yourself and you have no allies to stand with you, child, sweet baby Jesus, you bit off more than what you can chew. And this is why I said in the original video, she did not read the room at all. You do not hunt what you cannot kill. And if you are going to pick a fight, you got to make sure that you win. In the Army, it's always a 3-to-1 ratio. The way I fight, I prefer 5-to-1. It's a numbers game. It's a straight numbers game. But, for other content creators who are like, she's smart and she knows what she's doing. You sure about that? Because the copyright that is on her website says otherwise. But hey, you ain't got to listen to me. I'm just a nerd that's really, really adept at politics and what's going on around in society.
Interesting.
I agree with her.
Jasmine Crockett popularizes the headgear that Davy Crockett popularized. Everybody had one when I was in the 2nd and 3rd grade.
So this is Mike Johnson's Speaker of the House comments when he learned that Jasmine Crockett was running for Senate.
Absolutely delighted that Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate in Texas. I think it's one of greatest things that's happened to the Republican Party in a long, long time. She is the face of the Democratic Party. She and Mamdani. Good luck with that. I want her to have the largest, loudest microphone that she can every single day, and we look forward to having that election done there. We are going to elect another Republican senator in Texas. Absolutely delighted that Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate in Texas. I think it's one of the greatest things that's happened to
I agree. That's like Mandani won, but that was one of the biggest boosts that the Republicans could have gotten. And Trump being nice to him, I think, was sarcastically beautiful.
It's business. Business.
Let's see. We're going to nationalize we're going to urbanize all of the grocery stores in the New York area and put them under the city administration. We're going to make the transportation free. That sounds good, except who's going to pay for it? And let's see. Does the mayor of New York have the authority to do that? No, he doesn't. That would require the city council and shall we say, board of aldermen or a board of aldermen if they have such, and the state legislature. So I don't think it's going anywhere, but at least he had a talking point. Crockett girl doesn't have anything.
Well, one last
I know I wouldn't want somebody like that trying to represent my interest.
because she ain't representing nothing.
She ain't. I mean, it's like, are you serious? Who are you?
Like, I would get tired of her always talking about Trump. Like, girl, what do you want to do for us? What do you want to bring back to the state?
And you're trying to act like you're 20 years old. We don't want 20-year-old people running the U.S. government. They're too foolish. They haven't learned enough about life. They need to buckle down and get a little bit of life experience and get a lot of knowledge in their heads.
So let's go to D.C. because you sent me this.
Details back here at home. An investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice into the D.C. Police Department reportedly found that crime statistics may have been altered. The Washington Post reports a draft of this report and claims outgoing Chief Pam Smith created a, quote, coercive culture of fear that may have incentivized the alleged manipulation of crime stats. The draft report is dated December the 10th. It cites a review of thousands of police reports and interviews with more than 50 people, concluding D.C. crime stats were likely unreliable and inaccurate due to misclassifications, errors, purposefully downgraded classifications. However, the report does not cite a specific example of Smith allegedly requesting a crime to be downgraded to a lesser offense. It only states her leadership style enabled the alleged misclassifications. Chief Smith said this week she's going to resign at the end of the year to spend more time with family, though her decision was not because of recent surge of federal agents and National Guard members.
She got caught cooking the books.
Yeah, that's why I sent you that thing. Typical Democrat move. They want to holler and scream about evil Trump while they are the ones that are acting criminal. And the whole thing bothers me. They'd rather you suffer theft and death in their city than for anybody to actually do something about the problem. They've had years to take action and they have failed.
And when Trump first was sending the National Guard into D.C., that's what the Democrats, the mayor and the chief of police was toting. Crime is down 40%, right? And then they said the same thing in D.C. They said the same thing in New York. All of these sanctuary cities were toting the same number, 30 to 40% crime decrease, which is a lot.
Well, look at Memphis. Memphis really hits it in Shelby County. Crime is supposed to be down drastically, according to the Democrats. And I ask anybody that lives here, and they'll tell you that's a damn lie. But then after they say crime has dropped, guess what they want as a first priority?
What?
A new jail to handle the increased numbers of prisoners. Now, for 45 years, that jail has been sufficient. Crime is supposed to have dropped drastically, but then why do you need a new jail because the old one is not big enough to handle the reduced criminality? Because it's a lie. And
Right.
plus, certain of the favored people will get the very lucrative contracts to build the thing. And we will find once again that an ill-designed, constructed edifice has been put up that we don't need. And the taxpayers have been losing a lot of money. Do you want to hear the latest one? Remember me talking about the hotel downtown, the Sheraton that the city of Memphis put up $220 million of taxpayer money to finance reconstruction? Okay, they started on it. The clowns in place got about $8.6 million under the table that they split up. But guess what? Now that they have done the rebuilding, the city wants to buy the thing for an additional $250 million so they can sell it back to the hotel after sinking almost $500 million into the bloody project. And that's all just so money can be exchanged under the table. It's criminality. That needs to stop. But that's supposed to be why we want blue for me and you to do what they do when it comes to ruining your city too.
I want to play this clip here. This is Jim Jordan earlier this year in a committee hearing, really exposing the fake crime stats in DC.
What's taking property without right? What's taking property without right?
Oh, that would be theft.
Why not? Well, why not call it theft? Why come up with this designation? In fact, that's what he says. He's asked the question.
Congressman, I can't
the
speak to that
the
particular
solution from
case.
Mr. Zabowski was to come up with this TPWR, taking property without right. What is that? Taking property without right is what again?
If you're speaking to the particular charges, I can't speak to that. And as I've said several times here, I can't speak to that particular case. I think the issue is whether there is
I'm asking a
widespread.
simple question. You have a classification for crime called taking property without right. What does that mean? What does that mean?
That's what it said, if that's what the crime is.
Well, why not call it? I mean, what would a normal person call taking property without right?
Are we talking about what the criminal code and the specific
No, I'm just
crimes
talking
are?
about that statement that you have that's grown 500% in the last several years, that specific category of crime. I'm just wondering what does that exactly mean?
So if we look at collateral data such as ShotSpotter, we know that gunshots are down 29% from 23
Taking
to
property
24.
without right was the question. What does that mean?
I've already answered you, sir.
And what'd you say again?
I said that if you're speaking to a particular offense in our criminal code, I cannot speak to that particular offense.
Well, why not just call it stealing? That's what we would all. Someone comes and takes something that belongs to me, or someone comes and takes something that belongs to you. We call it stealing. Why create this new category that grows 500% that I think allows you to cook the books
Sir,
as the head of the FOP in your city said
As you
so?
know, as the chair of the Judiciary Committee, there are for many
That's so much
offenses a
bullshit.
range of possible charges from misdemeanor to felony and different shades of felony. So
You
I'm
gotta
not
be a goddamn
I'm not
fool if
familiar
you
with
can't
that
come up with
particular
the answer, and the answer is theft.
offense.
Theft, fool.
What's taking?
That's what you're describing. Theft. Admit it. Quit trying to dodge around it. You look hideous, and you look like a fool, like you think the rest of us go for your foolishness. It's theft. The taking of the property of another with the intent of depriving the true owner of the value of the property. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that is the definition of theft. It is called theft. It is stealing. Now, damn it. Go ahead and admit it. You came up with this crap to put everything that had previously been in the category of theft in, and all it is an alternative, long-winded definition for theft. And you are getting away. Theft is going down. You're a goddamn liar. because the category that he's asking you about is, in fact, a way of defining theft. So call it like it is. You see this charlatan here, this blue jackass jumping all over the place to avoid admitting the obvious. He's lying.
I think sitting right behind him there is the chief of police of DC, that woman in that
Yeah,
uniform.
it's a damn lie.
Mhm.
And it is a blatant lie. It's obvious and it's obscene in its ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Taking of the property of another. Well, what are you saying? Well, is that stealing or theft? It's taking of the property of another's way. Oh, you asshole. The damn thing, that's just a way of defining what theft is. Taking the property of another. God damn. So you sit up there and you go off on this kind of crap. And that's how we are supposed to promote some clowns like this running our cities. That is pathetic.
Yes, it is.
It's theft, stealing.
And I think all of these sanctuary cities are cooking the books.
Of course they are, like Memphis, right here in Memphis. I know where they're cooking them and how they're doing it.
Cooking them at the barbecue place.
Yeah, hey, put sauce on it. How would they dance around that? You know, I guess they're supposed to do a line dance out in front of the poles here in this blue city. You know, shake a tail feather, shake the money maker and put some sauce on it. You know, whatever in the hell. It looks obscene. The crime is going rampant. It's through the roof. Nobody is teaching the youth any public peace, dignity, and order, nothing about decency, integrity, honor, obligation, responsibility, being brave and courageous. They don't teach that. They don't want it. They just want anything so you can go play, get your freak on, go way out there, and everybody's supposed to accommodate you while the situation goes to hell, and you got theft and death all over these cities. And nobody that's in charge of these cities gives a damn because they are too busy trying to talk about President Donald Trump like he's the boogeyman, the Baba Yaga, rather than coming up with a coherent program, which they lack. And then when they try to come up with one, it's got all kinds of deficiencies and holes in it. And we know what the plan was. You were selfishly disregarding the national security interest because you wanted to stuff certain cities, California, New York, Illinois, etc., with extra people so they could pick up or keep congressmen and they wouldn't even be able to vote. Or the second plan was so you could get Queen Harris in there and you would have her declare that they were refugees and entitled to asylum so that they could be declared American citizens without having to take a single class, take a single test in 5 years and vote. And this would be when they would get the chance to vote and crack open the midterm elections in favor of the jackass party. It's really bad. So Al Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, North Korea, China, Iran, they get to flood this place with their operatives. The criminal cartels stuff people in here. Thousands, tens of thousands of convicted murderers and sex offenders are now loose in the United States. Con artists who have not been properly vetted are in here. Criminal elements have been given the greatest crime opportunity of their careers right here. And the Democrats say it's okay, just we have to be fair to them. They are sensitive and they were having a little downturn where they came from. Really? And then let's forget about the fact that our government got held up for the longest time in history because the Democratic Party wanted to insist that the illegals got free medical care while American citizens didn't. And illegal families of four got $5,000 a month to live off of while Americans are starving and veterans are going around deprived. And they didn't give a damn about the security interest because they were just looking for some BS to try and generate support from people who didn't know, didn't care, didn't get the point, didn't have to wait in line and jump the head of everybody else. That's really nice.
And with that, good night.
Anyway.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And please like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button. And we'll see you later. Say good night, Judge.
Good night, folk. Good night.
Oh, what am I doing here? Wait a minute. What is this? Oh. Let me get the, yeah, here we go.